Here it is, the heyday of pop family entertainment. 6 sagas of inspiration and intrigue. And we start with a family that launched an entire pop dynasty. All the way from Gary, Indiana, the Jacksons.
Michael? Right. Marlon. Okay. Jermaine, I know. Tito. Right. Jackie.
But it wasn't that easy for the Jackson 5. Formed by their dad, Joe, they worked for years around clubs and bars, pageants and parades, until in July 1968 they got the break they'd been dreaming of, an audition with Berry Gordy, the daddy of Tamla Motown, in front of his family as stars.
Everybody was there, from Diana Ross to the Temptations, Smokey, and the Four Tops, and we had to perform in front of all these artists singing their songs. We were all looking at Berry Gordy, trying to read his face, and we saw him keep whispering. We're wondering, what is he saying? What is he saying?
Initially, Gordy hesitated. He was reluctant to take on mere kids. But the Motown family was getting older. Many of its first generation of stars were beginning to decline, and the face of music was changing fast. Motown needed new blood, talent that Gordy could shape for a new generation. After days of deliberation, Gordy signed the Jackson 5. They would be the first real family at Motown and the last great group out of Motor City.
What you saw on stage was the ultimate Motown group. Every breath, every step, every move had been choreographed and replayed over and over and over again.
When I had this to myself, I didn't want you around. Those pretty faces always made you stand out in a crowd.
Before, when they were working back in Gary, Indiana, they just had suits. They were all looking all alike, like the Temptations. When they came to Motown, well, I saw the transformation.
The brightest colors you can find, and you put yellow with red and loud green, and that was the whole thing, with fringes and mirrors in your clothes.
But it wasn't just clothes that Motown controlled, it was personalities too.
They decided who would be the cute one, who would be the dancing one, who would be the sexy one.
That'd be Jermaine.
Jermaine was the heartthrob. He was 16, he was single, and Michael was the somewhat annoying but likable kid brother.
It sounds silly, but I remember Uncle Jermaine telling me and bragging about his afro. You know, how girls would just want to touch it and pat it.
With everything in place, people couldn't get enough of the Jackson 5.
Everyone could dig it. My mother knew who the Jackson 5 were. I mean, my grandmother knew who the Jackson 5 was. I mean, it was a family thing.
If Berry Gordy was driving them on stage, backstage, one man ruled the Jackson kids with an iron fist. Their dad, Joe.
He knew that he had a reputation as a stern taskmaster, and whenever he wanted to use that, he could.
Have you met their dad? Their dad just cuffs him up beside the head. I've met the man.
Have you?
He's sitting out there in the audience.
Let's introduce Mr. Joe Jackson, the father.
It's been written in many books that, you know, he was not afraid to give the kids a good smack, hit them with a switch or a belt.
His kids were frightened. He used to look at the boys, and Michael would always say to me, "Bobby, Joseph's giving me that look again."
But at the height of their fame, the Jackson 5 found themselves under the influence of 2 patriarchs, their dad, Joe, and their musical godfather, Berry Gordy. And each had their own ideas for the band.
When Berry Gordy met Joe,
I think it was like two bulls in a china shop, because they were both knowing what direction they wanted to go in.
I like for them to be able to write and produce, you know, and they'll be getting into that real soon. And so I like to see Michael walk up on stage and get something that he wrote, you know, it's good.
It's a good feeling.
It's a good feeling.
It was a difficult time for the group.
Berry Gordy was he was a businessman. He was trying to make money.
It was never congratulations. It was always, yeah, what's next?
That was becoming a problem as Motown's most successful family were forced to stick to a winning formula of bubblegum pop and weren't allowed to grow up.
As the Jackson 5 went on into the 70s, the whole landscape of music changed, but here was the Jackson 5 singing about these things like they were all 7. The Jacksons, to the credit, they realized that, and I think they tried to get more creative control, and ultimately could not get it based on their, their contract issues with Motown.
And then to make it even more interesting, sexy poster boy Jermaine married out of the Jacksons and into Motown, tying the knot with Hazel Gordy, Berry's daughter, just as Joe was hatching a plan for his boys to leave Motown.
So now here are the Jacksons. They're upset that they don't have any creative control over their product. They want to get off the label, but one of the guys in the group is the guy that's controlling their career is his father-in-law.
Jermaine's dilemma was that he was married to Hazel, and he had a loyalty to Hazel, and he had a loyalty to Mr. Gordy.
Now Jermaine, opts to take his new family that he's married into, over his old family, the Jacksons.
I'm sure that Mr. Gordy was somewhere saying, yeah, there's one for me. You can leave, but I got your boy here.
But for Jermaine's brothers, it was the end of the Jackson 5.
It was like I lost a brother for life. We've been doing music since we were babies, and, you're my age, and you're the other guitar player, and it was very sad.
The Jacksons came back 4 years later, but their relaunch was simply a prelude to losing another brother, Michael, who was cutting his teeth for the biggest solo career of all time. But Michael's career was overshadowed by the spectre of a childhood lost to the family business he'd been working in since the age of 5.
Unfortunately, he never had a childhood. So people misunderstood the fact of why he surrounded himself with kids in later life. It was because that he missed all of that himself.